Game Boy. In 1989, Nintendo launched what would become one of the most successful and influential gaming devices in history, the Game Boy. At first glance, it didn't seem like it should dominate the market. Competitors like the Atari Lynx and Sega Game Gear had full color displays and superior graphics, while the Game Boy stuck with a greenish, monochrome screen. But Nintendo's strategy wasn't about raw power. It was about practicality, affordability, and a killer game lineup. The Game Boy debuted in Japan in April 1989 and sold 300,000 units in its first 2 weeks. By the time it hit North America in July, hype was through the roof. At $89.99, it was far more affordable than its rivals, and Nintendo made the genius move to bundle it with Tetris. The simple puzzle game was addictive, universally appealing, and easy to learn, making it a system seller across all age groups. Battery life was another massive advantage. Where competitors drained batteries in under 5 hours, the Game Boy could run for up to 30 hours on 4 AA's. That made it perfect for travel, school breaks, and all-day play sessions. The launch lineup, including Super Mario Land and baseball, gave players variety right from day one. By the end of its first year, the Game Boy had already sold millions worldwide, instantly securing Nintendo's dominance in the handheld market and setting the stage for an entire generation of portable gaming. Nintendo DS. In late 2004, Nintendo surprised the gaming world with the launch of the Nintendo DS, a handheld that didn't just iterate on past designs, but completely redefined what portable gaming could be. The DS introduced a dual screen setup, with the bottom one being a touchscreen, a first for a major handheld. At launch, some critics weren't sure if this gimmick would resonate with gamers. Within days, sales proved them wrong. In Japan, Nintendo shipped 500,000 units on day one and sold through most within days. In the US, just over 500,000 sold in the first week. The system's unique hardware opened the door to new gameplay styles, from drawing maps in The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass to cooking along in Cooking Mama. But Nintendo's real masterstroke was making the DS backward compatible with Game Boy Advance games, giving early adopters a massive library right at launch. Bundled titles like Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt showed off the touch controls, while Super Mario 64 DS proved that even a home console classic could be reinvented for the handheld. Developers quickly embraced the hardware, and word of mouth spread fast. The DS skyrocketed to the top, eventually outselling every handheld before it. The launch was so strong that within months, it was clear Nintendo had created not just a successor to the Game Boy, but a whole new era in handheld gaming: PlayStation Portable. When Sony entered the handheld market in March 2005 with the PlayStation Portable, many doubted they could compete with Nintendo's decades-long dominance. But from day one, the PSP made it clear it wasn't here to imitate. It was here to bring a full console-like experience to your hands. Featuring a gorgeous 4.3-inch widescreen display, graphics on par with the PlayStation 2, and multimedia capabilities that included music, movies, and photos, the PSP was positioned as a premium device for gamers on the go. In Japan, the PSP sold over 160,000 units on its first day despite shortages, and in North America, it moved more than 500,000 units within the first 2 days, one of the strongest handheld launches in history. Sony's launch lineup was a major factor in the success. Titles like Ridge Racer and Wipeout Pure immediately showcased the PSP's ability to deliver high-quality, visually stunning games. Unlike Nintendo's DS, which leaned into innovation, the PSP sold itself on power and versatility. You could watch movies on UMD discs, listen to music, browse photos, and connect to the internet, all on the same device. For many, it was the first time a handheld felt like a true multimedia hub. The PSP's debut proved that Nintendo didn't have a monopoly on portable gaming success, and it set the stage for years of healthy competition in the handheld space. Game Boy Advance. When Nintendo launched the Game Boy Advance in 2001, it was more than just the next step in their handheld lineup. It was a complete leap forward. After more than a decade of success with the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color, Nintendo finally gave players the one thing they had been dreaming of: 32-bit handheld power capable of delivering console-quality experiences on the go. From the start, the GBA's launch was a smash hit. In Japan, it sold over 600,000 units in its first week, and in North America, 500,000 units were sold within just a month, making it one of the fastest-selling handhelds ever at the time. The excitement wasn't just about the hardware. The launch lineup was stacked. Titles like Super Mario Advance, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, and Castlevania Circle of the Moon instantly showed off the system's capabilities. What made the GBA such a success was its perfect balance of innovation and familiarity. It introduced a sleek horizontal design with shoulder buttons, something no Nintendo handheld had done before, while maintaining backward compatibility with the massive Game Boy and Game Boy Color library. This meant that even on launch day, millions of players already had a huge collection of games ready to play. The Game Boy Advance's debut cemented Nintendo's dominance in the handheld market, proving they could evolve without losing the magic that made them king of portables in the first place. Sega Game Gear. In 1990, Sega set its sights on dethroning Nintendo's Game Boy with a bold promise: full-color handheld gaming that looked and felt like a portable Sega Genesis. The Game Gear launched first in Japan that October, then rolled out to North America and Europe in 1991, with a splashy marketing campaign aimed directly at Game Boy owners. Sega's ads boasted about the Game Gear's backlit, full-color display, its ability to play TV with a special tuner, and a library filled with recognizable Sega hits. On launch day, the Game Gear's appeal was undeniable. Columns, Super Monaco GP, and Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse immediately showed off its rich visuals, and compared to the Game Boy's monochrome graphics, it felt like the future. In Japan, it sold around 40,000 units in its first 2 days, about 90,000 within a month, and racked up more than 600,000 back orders, a massive start for a newcomer in a market dominated by Nintendo. While the system eventually struggled due to its high price and short battery life, the launch itself was a clear win. Sega managed to convince a huge number of players to jump on board early, proving there was room for premium handhelds alongside Nintendo's simpler approach. The Game Gear's debut stands as one of Sega's brightest moments in the portable gaming space, a launch that went right even if the long-term story was more complicated. Which handheld is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Atari Lynx. When Atari launched the Lynx in 1989, they were trying to dethrone the Game Boy. The Lynx was the world's first handheld with a full-color LCD screen, and not just any screen. It could display impressive 3D-style scaling and distortion effects that made Game Boy graphics look ancient by comparison. Even more revolutionary was its ambidextrous design. You could flip the console upside down, and the controls would still work perfectly, making it one of the few truly left-handed friendly consoles ever made. The Lynx also featured a built-in backlight, meaning you could play in the dark, something Game Boy owners wouldn't get until years later. It even supported multiplayer through a comically long cable that could link up to 8 units together. Atari's marketing leaned heavily on this tech advantage, showing off arcade-like titles such as Blue Lightning and California games that dwarfed the monochrome competition. Despite its higher price and shorter battery life, the Lynx launch made waves. It was seen as a technical marvel, a genuine next-gen leap in handheld gaming. For a brief moment, Atari had not just matched Nintendo, they had out-innovated them, setting a new bar for what portable consoles could be. Nintendo 3DS. When Nintendo unveiled the 3DS in 2011, it promised something handheld gaming had never seen before: glasses-free 3D visuals. It was a bold gamble, but when launch day arrived in Japan, it became clear the hype was real. More than 370,000 units were sold in just the first weekend. North America's release followed soon after, with lines forming outside stores and thousands of pre-orders secured months in advance. The 3DS selling point wasn't just the 3D effect. Though it was impressive, it was the combination of that visual depth with Nintendo's unmatched first-party lineup. The launch window included titles like Pilot Wings Resort and Nintendogs Plus Cats, with promises of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D and Mario Kart 7 later in the year. Street Pass, an innovative feature that allowed systems to exchange data simply by passing other players in real life, added a unique social layer to the experience. While the system faced a sales dip a few months after launch, Nintendo's aggressive price cut and release of heavy-hitting games pushed it back into the spotlight. Looking back, the 3DS launch proved that Nintendo could still surprise the market, blending innovation with instant brand recognition to dominate handheld gaming for years. Neo Geo Pocket Color. In 1999, SNK launched the Neo Geo Pocket Color, a sleek handheld designed to bring arcade-quality gaming into your pocket. Unlike its predecessor, the monochrome Neo Geo Pocket, this upgraded model featured a bright color screen, improved battery life, and a library that perfectly captured the magic of SNK's arcade hits. At launch, it stood out not just for its visuals, but for its build quality: solid, clicky buttons, and a micro-switch thumbstick that made fighting games feel precise even on a handheld. The system launched with titles like SNK vs. Capcom: Match of the Millennium, a crossover fighter that was shockingly deep for a portable game. It also offered Metal Slug First Mission, Puzzle Bobble Mini, and a range of other arcade-style gems that made full use of its smooth performance. Battery life was stellar too, lasting up to 40 hours on just 2 AA batteries, a serious edge over power-hungry competitors. While it couldn't topple Nintendo's dominance with the Game Boy Color, the Neo Geo Pocket Color's first year was praised for delivering exactly what SNK promised: arcade fun, no compromises. For fighting game fans especially, its launch remains one of the most beloved right moves in handheld history. Nintendo Switch 2. When Nintendo released the Switch 2 on June 5, 2025, it was a hit. In the first 4 days, it sold over 3.5 million units worldwide, making it the fastest-selling Nintendo hardware ever. In the US alone, the Switch 2 racked up 1.6 million units sold in its launch month, surpassing the PlayStation 4's 1.1 million, and becoming the fastest selling video game hardware in US history. Several features helped fuel this explosive launch, notably its upgraded hardware, new game chat functionality, magnetic Joy-Con 2 controllers, and the built-in appeal of both portability and performance. Nintendo also launched Switch 2 with a blockbuster, Mario Kart World. This was definitely a system seller. Over 82% of Switch 2 buyers purchased Mario Kart World at launch, whether via bundle or separately, making it one of the highest attach rates Nintendo has ever seen. Simply put, Switch 2's debut checked every box: massive demand, strong software support, and killer hardware, solidifying it as one of the most successful handheld launches in gaming history. Game Boy Color. In 1998, Nintendo pulled off one of the most masterful handheld launches in history with the Game Boy Color. Unlike a brand new console, this was an upgrade to the already legendary Game Boy, adding a color screen, faster processor, and full backward compatibility with the massive Game Boy library. That meant anyone who upgraded could still play their favorite classics, but also enjoy a wave of new, more visually impressive titles. Nintendo's launch lineup was nothing short of brilliant. Games like Tetris DX, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening DX, and Wario Land 2 gave players colorful remasters of familiar hits, while Pokemon Gold and Silver loomed on the horizon to drive hype even further. The Color also became the home for Pokemon Yellow, which perfectly tied into the peak of Pokemon mania at the time. The Game Boy Color sold over 100 million units when combined with the original Game Boy, dominating the handheld market well into the early 2000s. It proved that you didn't need to completely reinvent the wheel to launch a massively successful system. You just needed to improve what people already loved and deliver the right games at the right time. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.